Hey there. I just interviewed Norland Tellez about the Mayan people and their book called The Popol Vuh, which is about the People's Council. Really interesting. He also studies Jungian psychology and Freudian psychology. And I'm just going to do a little recap of our conversation, both so I can create a summary later and in case you're interested in what we learned, having some insight into that. So we talked a lot about a lot of things. Norland Tellez originally was born in Nicaragua, but then studied a lot in the United States. He went to the Pacific Graduate School for Dreams Psychology, studied a lot of Jung, and then had what they call a shamanistic initiation, which includes a lot of pain and trauma, so that you wake up to the fundamental nature of the universe, which is suffering, or a human existence, which is suffering. And so he had this shamanic initiation, which actually then brought him closer to Freud. And so we talked about all that, a lot of Western psychology, Western philosophy, but then he also brought in a lot of interesting tidbits from Mayan thought. So who, what, where, when, why. So it was really interesting. And then this conversation was really valuable. Let's get some good points of it. Basically, Jung talked about mythology and history, and Jung made those separate, so that Jung decided that mythology was perennial to all humans of all histories. And what Freud did was said, nope, they're together. And what Norland does say, yep, they're both together. You can't have history without mythology. You can't have mythology without history. Interesting points he made on ideology. Good question, what separates ideology from mythology? And then he talked about how a lot of times propaganda takes ideology and then separates it from the history and creates a new thing that gets people to make this, which then brought up a question I want to ask is, when did psychology and business start marrying? Because he mentioned that Freud to the US and created public relations and created focus groups and all this different stuff. So interesting things there. The main point that Norland wanted to get out was that the Mayans grappled with this same individualism that we talk about. They had, in their mythology, they had the Titans, the gods created the Titans, and the Titans weren't really gods and they weren't really humans. They were somehow better than humans, but not quite gods. And it reminded me today of techno-capitalists who are creating technology that is indistinguishable from a god's power, and have a lot of ego complexes involved in that as well. And also I'm reading this book called Opening the Heart of Compassion from Buddhist Vajrayana tantric thought and philosophy and practice. And it talks about a similar thing about the land of the Titans. And we as individuals get into this Titan realm where we start to think that we're above other humans and we have this superiority complex. And guess what? Not superior, we are not inferior, and we are not equal. We are constantly shifting psycho-spiritual matrices that are interacting with each other. And if you really understood who you are, you would realize that you are not superior, you are not inferior, you are the same. You are made of the same stardust as everyone else. A little tangent from my conversation with Norland. And so Mayan philosophy, Popol Vuh, interesting stuff. We also got into perennial wisdom and how a lot of this shows up in a lot of different cultures. Hopefully this is valuable, and hopefully this helps me make a summary.